If you're not used to installing windows by yourself, it can be troublesome and tricky. But in this video, I'll show you a couple tips and tricks to help mitigate all those frustrations and allow for a smooth install. Let's get into it. Before you even start flashing the opening, go around and verify that the sheathing is tight to the framing. If it's not, go ahead, set those nails again so everything's nice and tight. If there are any gaps, we want to minimize them, because when we set this window and we get to trimming out the inside, if that jamb isn't flush with our drywall, it's going to cause issues. So doing this is a quick step to ensure everything lines up in the end. If there are still gaps, you can use screws and clamps to tighten them up so everything is perfect. So it looks like we still have a gap at the top corner. It looks like the stud's just a little proud on the inside, so we can use a hand clamp to tighten that up and then just use a construction screw to suck it in as best as we can. All right, so we can just use a piece of scrap. This is just some scrap 5/4 I had laying around. You can use a 2x, whatever have you. We're just gonna try and distribute the weight on the drywall, and then we'll just use a hand clamp. So we just throw a couple screws in now and it'll keep that pressure on that. There we go, nice and tight. All right, so now that the opening is flashed, it's time to shim the bottom sill. So I shim for 2 reasons. One, it allows me to know when I put the window in, it's gonna be relatively level. Probably gonna need some work on it, but it's a good starting position. And then number 2 is to get the window up so you can get insulation in underneath. If you put the window directly on the sill, there's no way to get insulation in really well. So as long as you keep it up enough to get the nozzle of the insulation or just room to stuff fiberglass in, it's gonna seal that bottom and keep drafts out. So now that it's level, we want to keep our shims there, but we also don't want to drive fasteners through our flashing and kind of ruining it. So what I like to do is just grab a little piece of tape and tape down each shim. So that'll keep it there while I'm setting the window. A lot of window manufacturers are going to require some sort of sealant around the perimeter of the window. Make sure you hit the sides and the top and leave it away from the bottom. If any water ever gets inside the jamb, we don't want to keep it on the sill. We want to allow it to escape. So if you put a bead of silicone on the bottom, it's going to keep the water there and cause more issues. All right, so we have our sealant on. It's time for the window to go in. A couple things I like to do to ensure that I'm set up for success is I'm gonna have shims on me. I'm gonna ensure the sashes are unlocked so I can reach in and shim from the outside. I have my level at the base of the window so I can just grab it when I need to shim it. And then I have an impact ready to go so I can screw the window in. All right, so once the window's in, we need to space the window in the rough opening. So all I do for this is reach in, maintaining pressure on the window so it doesn't fall on me, and just tuck my fingertips inside the opening to ensure that I have equal spacing on either side. And right there looks pretty good. Now it's time to level the window. This never happens, but the window itself is actually perfectly level as it is. So if it wasn't, what I'd do is screw off on the high side. Right here on the bottom of the window. That gives me almost a pivot point so I can raise up the other side. And I can just take a shim, raise the window up a little bit, and tuck it on top of that other shim. And then get it to wherever I need it. Once the base is level, I can go ahead and screw off this other side. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do is ensure that it's not racked at all. So you can either plumb or pull corners. I like to plumb because there's always these nasty little tabs on the corner. You can never get a really good reading. All right, so I'm a little racked right now. The top needs to go right. So a cool tool I like to keep on me is a little air shim. So I can tuck this in between the window and the frame and then just give it a little pressure and it should pull the window over enough for me to plumb it and then screw it off. All right, once plumb, go ahead, throw a screw in. All right, and then before we nail or screw off the rest of the window, we're gonna go inside, make sure it operates well, and then lock the sashes, and then screw or nail off the rest of the window. All right, so the sashes are locked. It's time to nail or screw off the rest of the window. What I like to do on the bottom is use every other nail hole, just so that flange isn't sealing to the flashing tape. So if water ever does get on the sill, it can come out and it's not trapped there. And then the rest of the way up and over, I'll use all the nailing holes. One thing to keep in mind, or a little tip, if you will, when you're nailing off the flange, the sealant likes to pop out of these holes if you drive that nail all the way in. A way to avoid it is to start all your nails all the way around and then go back and drive them all tight at the end, so you're not constantly getting sealant on your hammer and then on your fingers as you're setting new nails. Just a little tip to keep everything nice and clean. So you'll get all the nails started all the way up, and then you can just go back and drive them home. So you see how the silicone escaped right there. So that way you're obviously going to get some on your hammerhead, but you won't be getting it on your fingers. All right, hopefully you guys picked up a couple tips when it comes to installing windows by yourself. If you did, feel free to like the video or subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot, and then you'll stay notified when new videos like this come out. Until next time, guys, have a good one.